Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Hush Blackwell, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly. Our topics this week: in Kansas, a brownback setback. KCI's future is unclear, and that's the plain truth. And we confirm Comey is no Trump homie, plus roast and toast. But we start with our interview segment and get some insight into a major development in Kansas that will affect virtually every taxpayer. After years of debate, the state legislature has finally overturned Governor Sam Brownback's income tax cuts and instituted across-the-board tax hikes. Supporters say this is necessary to overcome the state's budget shortage and to meet the state Supreme Court's mandate for more school funding. Here to talk about details of the program is economist Michael Austin with the Kansas Department of Revenue. Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you don't get either credit or blame for the new tax bill?
Oh, you know what? I'm an economist. My role is simply to judge economic environments and see what that means for Kansas and in particular tax revenues at the Department of Revenue.
So the Department of Revenue in Kansas, is that analogous to the IRS at the federal level?
In a way, the IRS contracts with many state government agencies in order to carry out specific tax duties for state governments. So yes, that most certainly can be considered.
And talk a bit more about your role as an economist with the Department of Revenue.
Sure thing. So of course, the Department of Revenue monitors as well as brings in revenue for the state government. My role is to look at state, regional, national, and maybe even international economic trends and try to discern what that might mean for Kansas tax revenues that are going to come in.
Okay, let's talk about this new legislation, this new law that was just passed by the legislature, I think, last week. Tax hikes across the board. When does the new bill, the new law, go into effect?
Well, just like you already alluded to, the tax man is coming, and he's calling on Kansas taxpayers to pay about $1.2 billion in new taxes over the next 2 fiscal years. And Kansans most certainly need to know how those taxes will take effect and how they can better prepare for their budget. I think one of the most important things to know about this bill is that for Kansans who own a personal business, they will have to pay state income tax on that business
The
income.
LLCs, the limited liability corporations.
Right, so it's maybe known as the LLC exemption or the LLC loophole. That's no longer going to be gone. Another key aspect to consider is that for those Kansans who don't own a business, so for those who make a living earning wages, they're going to see a tax increase as well. We currently stand at a 2-bracket or a 2-rate structure, 2.6,
We're going to
4.7.
3 now, right?
That's right, but not only going to 3, but also will be paying higher rates. And the cherry on that pie, so to speak, to consider also is that all this happens retroactively.
Okay, let me go through what I have in the way of the rates, and you tell me if this is right or wrong. For married couples, a 0 to 30,000, 3.1%.
That will take effect tax year 2018.
Okay, and for those who earn 30 to 60,000, that's going to be taxed at 5.25%.
That's correct.
And above 60,000, it's 5.7%.
That will be correct.
Okay, this question: are these new rates higher or lower than they were before the Brownback tax cuts?
On a technicality, they are lower. The tax rates in 2012 were, I believe, at 3.5, 6.25, and 6.45. But I think an interesting aspect to understand about these rates that'll take effect in July is that even though the law is to hit the books July 1st, those new tax rates are going to take effect all the way back to January. What that essentially means is that even though you've already withheld tax from your paycheck for the first 6 months.
That's not enough.
That's right. And you'll have to catch yourself up in the next 6 months, and that could mean a pretty penny.
There are some deductions people can take.
That's correct.
What are they?
So we have 2 changes on the itemized deductions as well as the child care and dependent credit. The itemized deductions are for mortgage interest and property. They will go up starting in tax year 2018. And then we have the child dependent care credit, which was in place pre-tax cuts, but now will be restored, and it will take about 25% of what you can file on the federal return.
So if you read newspapers, not only in Kansas City, but around the country, even around the world, you will read that what happened in Kansas proves that tax cuts will fail and you can't increase revenues and get more people to move to your state and get more people employed by cutting taxes. And yet, it seems to me, from my limited experience, other states do that and succeed, and the federal government did that in years past when Ronald Reagan was president.
I hear that argument a lot, but I think one thing you have to consider is that the Kansas economy just doesn't work in a bubble. It doesn't work in a vacuum, and it's not just Kansas, it's Missouri, it's Oklahoma, it's Nebraska. The world doesn't operate like a lesson we have in the classroom. There are so many factors that can hit an area economy all at the same time. In Kansas's case, we'd had global ag and energy drop in 2014. Our manufacturing industry has yet to really recover from the recession, and yet the tax cuts only took effect a year prior.
And yet, has spending decreased over the years of the tax cuts?
On a technicality, spending has not decreased, but the growth has been slowed.
Taxing, even though it's been lower, the spending in the state has been higher, has it not?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there a website you can mention or someplace people can go to get more detail about the new law?
Of course. You can visit our website at the Kansas Department of Revenue, www.ksrevenue.gov. Not only that, you can, of course, follow me on Twitter. I always tweet about what's happening in Kansas, both through an economic perspective as well as tax revenue. And I believe we also have information that we can share here with you on Ruckus.
So there's no shortage of places people can find out about the new tax bill. Thank you very much. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much.
That is economist Michael Austin with the Kansas Department of Revenue. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Sean Saving joins the panel for the first time. He's a scientist and labor activist and part of the Heartland Labor Forum at KKFI Radio. Ron Freeman's a former radio talk show host and Kansas GOP official. Ron is now a motivational speaker and writer. Jamika Kendricks describes herself as an education activist, and Steve Marakian describes himself as a superb and brilliant attorney with the firm of Warshabs and Marakian. We are back after being off for a couple of weeks for the KCPT fundraising drive. For those of you who took part, thanks for your support and interest. Well, there's much to talk about, so let's get started. To the relief of many and the dismay of others, the Kansas legislature has finally succeeded in undoing Governor Sam Brownback's income tax program, across-the-board tax cuts, and replacing it with across-the-board tax hikes. The new measure imposes 3 levels of taxation based on income, 3.1, 5.25, and 5.7%. The law also abolishes the tax break for owners of Kansas limited liability corporations known as LLCs. The tax hikes, which take effect this year, are designed to overcome the state's projected deficit problems and school finance issues. This move is a major shift in legislative priorities and could foretell a changing attitude of Kansas voters, a move away from Brownback conservatism. Ron, do you see that happening?
No, I don't. I think what you see, this wasn't a moderate election win. It was a policy turnover. It was a transition because pragmatically it made sense to make the change. However, what's going to happen if this doesn't work? And you've got some economic factors like, for example, oil production in the state's down 20%. You've got wheat prices are 50% or from down from where they were when Brownback came in the office. Excuse me. A lot of revenue is gone. So it's not... What's going on here? It's not simply tax policy.
You need to see your doctor.
There are, maybe.
Get some cough
but there are a lot of other factors here. Now, I don't think it's just going to go away because they changed tax policy. It won't. Matter of fact, it won't go away.
Jamika, do you think the legislature made a pragmatic decision? They said, we've got to raise money, we've got to raise taxes, or do you think this was a philosophical change, a statement that government needs to do more and spend more?
I think it was probably pragmatic. They felt like they needed to do something. But I also think that it's political because when you look at the news articles that we have surrounding this. Everything is talking about, oh, this was a bad move politically. Oh, they're going to have to run some very aggressive campaigns in the future to make sure that we are able to get back to conservatism in Kansas. And I think that's one of the issues with our government, because our elected officials aren't always thinking about what's best for the people. So in a sense, it was pragmatic, but I also think that a lot of that had to do with how are we going to make sure that we are reelected or that we are able to move to our next elected office. And I'm tired of that.
Sean, do you think the situation in Kansas means that tax cuts can't stimulate business, can't stimulate additional revenues? Or
The experiment failed. I mean,
does that mean it will fail everywhere and has failed before?
It's failed before. I mean, there's really no evidence that tax cuts pay for themselves, and they might stimulate the economy. But let's look at what the tax cut here was. We're talking about a tax rate of highest of 6% on incomes. This is not enough to generate new jobs for anybody. If you're a LLC, you're a private employer, single sole proprietorship, you probably don't have any employees. You get say you have $100,000 in taxable income at the end of the year. You got a $6,000 tax cut. Who hires somebody because you have $6,000? No, you might buy something else. You might take a vacation. You might buy some new equipment. Well, that equipment was probably not built in Kansas. It probably came from China.
Okay, we're going to move on
What's
now
that do?
over to Steve. What do you think? Does this mean tax cuts can't stimulate economic growth? What happened during the Reagan years?
No, you're absolutely right, Mike. Sean's completely wrong. Tax cuts have been proven to stimulate growth. They didn't do it in Kansas precisely because
JFK, Ronald Reagan.
May I finish,
tax rates were
please?
90%.
Yeah, but
This
You
is
know,
still a change the impact.
Kansas had issues that do not exist in other states, such as Texas, such as Indiana. There are many states where these kinds of tax cuts have been very effective. They certainly were very effective during the Reagan year. Sean speaks like a guy, like I expect he would, who has never employed anybody in his life. I have employed people. There are millions of small business owners, sole proprietors, and people who employ lots and lots of people. And when they get tax breaks,
Then why have jobs not increased?
may I finish? They employ people in order to expand their businesses. That's what America is about, is the growth of small businesses, and that's where tax cuts can help dramatically.
All right. In the least surprising news of the week, month, year, decade, Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach has announced he's running for the GOP gubernatorial nomination next year. By simply announcing, does he become the presumptive front runner, Ron?
I think so, without question. I mean, he's a statewide office holder. He's got name recognition. He's got supporters. He's working on a major issue, which is the immigration issue. So he's credible. He's a true conservative, if you want to use some language. I mean, he's a guy that people they know where he stands, what he's going to bring to the table. And if the moderates are going to ever make a move, this is their time. If they can't, then this is going to be reality.
Sean, briefly,
Conservative wins.
what are the negatives about Kobach?
Well, I think he's, besides Brownback, the most tone-deaf politician in Kansas. I mean, he stood up there in his announcement speech and he said, "I'm going to stand up to the tax raisers." Well, we need a governor that will stand up. I think Brownback did that, and he was roundly smacked down.
And yet Kobach's been elected every time he's run for
Well,
state
he's running
office
for
or any
Secretary of
office.
State.
Well,
I mean, that's not
he
government.
had, he had
That's money.
opponents, as I recall.
Elections are about
what are
money,
the
not
assets?
about
No, it's
policy.
message. It's
Well,
message.
okay.
Oh, that's a
Kobach's
lie.
been message.
That's a lie.
Message got it
Steve,
done.
you're not Steve, are you?
No, I'm not
Steve's
Steve.
over here. Steve, what are the assets for Kobach?
Well, one of the strengths he's got is that despite the liberal criticism, most Kansans are very much in favor of the action he has taken with regard to voter fraud. He has a lot of great name recognition. He will not run on tax increases. Brownback has done a disservice to Kansas with what's happened with the economy. He has great name recognition. He's very smart. He's a brilliant attorney. And he's a very good campaigner. He'll be a very formidable candidate.
9
Okay, got
cases
to
of
move
voter
on.
misconduct.
We
9
have to move
One
on.
non-citizen.
Again, we have to move on. There's an old expression that goes, "Never look a gift horse in the mouth." Broadly, it means don't question a gift, whether it's a horse or anything else, unless, of course, it's a gift airport, like the one Kansas City firm Burns and McDonnell offered to the city government. The mayor and city manager were all aboard for the cost-free $1 billion one-terminal revamp of Kansas City International, but some on the council and many in the public called for competitive bidding, and still others rejected the whole concept of a new airport. So the council is now considering the offers coming in, and the future course remains unclear. But let's start with this. Has Burns and McDonnell been treated fairly by the city? After all, Jamaica, they were the first ones to come forward. It's their idea.
First of all, not their idea. Secondly, I do think that
It's not their idea to finance and build the airport?
That actually came out, private financing as a possibility came out in 2013 with these discussions. And it was actually put out as a way to get around the vote for the airport. So Burns and McDonnell did not come up with this idea to do private financing. It was out there 4 years ago. And I don't think it's a question of whether or not they're being treated fairly. I think the question is, are the people in Kansas City being treated fairly? Because Kansas City, since 2012, has consistently questioned the need for a single terminal, has consistently said, let's look at both single terminal and renovation. And the city has consistently tried to move us in the direction, the business community as well, of a single terminal. And this is since 2012. They moved United from Terminal A to Terminal C. And they said, oh, this was to save money. Was it really to save money, or was it to set us up so that we could get a single terminal built in Terminal A? And so the question is, are we getting the information we need to make a good decision?
Oh, okay, same question to Sean. Burns and McDonnell being treated fairly by the city government?
I think as a public asset, you have to have a request for proposal and get other bids. I mean, I think the idea of private financing is nice. The city really shouldn't be putting any more debt on its books, or even it wouldn't be public debt, but it would be the city would have to back it up. You know, so I think that the private idea is good. I do think that it's reasonable to get a few other bids, a few other proposals, a few other designs. I mean, I think Burns and McDonnell's a great company. They're local. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a few other options.
I think the way it was done is wrong.
Ron,
there is a lot of questions about that.
Ron, should a local company get first or prior consideration more so than an out-of-town company?
No, I think the city should operate against, to make it fair is, why would you exclude everybody else in the process? Maybe someone locally would have an opportunity here if it was afforded to them. Like you said, having an RFP on the deal that's public policy. And so I don't think it's unfair to Burns and McDonnell. I think it's unfair to everybody else.
Steve, polling in the past has indicated people don't want a new airport. They're happy with what they have. But a recent poll asking people what they would think of a privately financed, privately built airport apparently shows majority support. Do you think the public view has changed?
Yes, and I give just anecdotally, it's changed my view dramatically. I think Burns McDonnell is being treated unfairly. When I was opposed to this idea, because I didn't want to see a lot of public money being spent to build a brand new airport. When someone comes forward like Burns McDonnell, we're lucky to have a world-class engineering firm here. When they come forward and say they're going to finance this thing and basically build it with their money, then I say, I'm all for it. I think we need a new airport. And I like the Burns McDonnell proposal. I think the mayor is a very smart man, has done a great job, and I think he should push this very hard.
Because the mayor is smarter than the people of Kansas City.
I think the mayor,
Burns and McDonnell got to do a deal with the mayor and the city manager with nobody else being involved, but they're being treated unfairly. Come on.
The city keeps moving the time back, Ron, when people can send in applications. They've moved it back to July, maybe to August, I'm not sure which. Some worry that if they delay too long, they're not going to get this on the ballot in November, and that's going to make the airlines very, very unhappy.
I think that's a straw man. I don't think the airlines are going anywhere because they're making money.
Johnson County Airport?
Go for it. That's not going to happen.
All right. But the issue is that they don't have the numbers, the estimates on the cost will be 3 years old if they don't get on this ballot. And that's where the issue is. The cost will be different.
True.
Trump haters and supporters both found future talking points in former FBI Director James Comey's testimony last week before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Haters say Comey's testimony confirms their view of the president as a narcissistic bully who tried to interfere in a federal investigation. Supporters note that Comey's testimony confirms what Trump had been saying. At least to that point, he was not a target of the FBI's probe. There were other notable moments, Comey calling Trump a liar, and Comey confirming that Obama administration Attorney General Loretta Lynch intervened apparently inappropriately in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. There is much more on both sides, but let us look to the future. Does this energize Trump and his backers or suggest a more tumultuous time ahead for the president? We begin with Steve Marakian.
Well, but for the fact that the Republicans were so foolish as to go along with this special counsel idea, this would have pretty much been very good for the president. There's going to be a very tumultuous time ahead because it doesn't matter what anybody says. There are those who simply want to bring down the presidency, and they don't care. So I tend to focus on what learned lawyers say. I happen to be a lawyer, but I won't put myself in that category. I look at famous conservatives like Alan Dershowitz and Professor Turley, well-known conservatives who have looked at this thing, and I as well, based on my 40 years of criminal practice, and the question of whether or not what Comey said would rise to even come close to a level of obstruction of justice, and the answer is absolutely not. There's no obstruction charge here. There's nothing that has come out thus far that the president has done that would come close to being a crime. The only crime that came out during his testimony was committed by Comey himself. Comey, as the FBI director, does not make internal memos to himself. These are government documents. Comey knows that conversations with the president are, by law, confidential. He cannot provide a government document to a third-party source without violating the law. Comey admitted at least 3 crimes by himself, but all that's being lost in the discussion.
Jamika, we just learned late yesterday that the special counsel, Bob Mueller, is considering, we're told by a leak from apparently the FBI, that he's considering accusations of obstruction of justice against the president. So it doesn't get easier for the Trump administration, does it? Even though Comey's testimony seemed to clear Trump of any personal investigation.
I don't think it's changed anything. I think the people who supported Trump are going to continue to support Trump and think it's okay, whatever he's doing. They're going to justify it. I think the people who oppose Trump are going to continue to say that he's a narcissistic bully. And there's been a question of, does that compromise the ability to get some legislation through? I don't think it has an impact on that either, because as Comey was testifying, we got the bill to reverse some of the restrictions that were put on Wall Street. Passed in the House, and we also got the Affordable Care Act, Health Care Act that they're trying to push through. It got some traction, and so I don't think that it really
passed the House.
Effect.
It didn't pass the Senate yet. Democrats are talking about impeachment, or at least some of them. Is it not too early, Sean, to think impeachment?
I think that's a distraction. I don't think we need to be talking about that right now.
Right.
The investigation has a lot more to go. The collusion issue is maybe there's nothing there. It doesn't really matter. There's plenty of things to investigate this president on. The emoluments clause alone, and along with every other, his relationships with Russian mobsters that finance a lot of his projects. There's a whole lot going on here. There's a lot of smoke. It's going to take some time.
Ron, weigh in. What do you think about how this Trump investigation has been handled?
I think it's part of a we're a divided culture, and it's really getting bad. I mean, you look at the shooting in Virginia the other day, there's just a lot, the escalation of bitterness, and it's not healthy for the country.
People are coming out after the shooting of Congressman Scalise and others on Wednesday morning, and they're saying, well, this will bring us to a new time of unity. We will come together, we'll dampen down the harsh rhetoric. The same thing was said after 9/11, and that lasted for about 24 hours, and then politics got more harsh than ever before. So, frankly, I don't think anything's going to change.
It's not. It's not.
You think it's going to change?
No, it's absolutely not. I think it's...
Then what's the result?
And I think it benefits.
If it stays so
but I think
harshly
it benefits
partisan,
the
what happens?
two-party system, because if you look at what's happening now, and we had this when Obama was president, you had all the, granted, with Obama, they were like, Obama is like the greatest thing ever, and look at all these people who are against him. But we always had, well, with the Trump stuff, Republicans are able to say, oh, the media is coming after this president, and we need some change, and this is so terrible. And the Democrats are able to vent.
Okay, we're going to head now to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes have 30 seconds each to uphold or scold people and events in the news. And we start with Jamika.
I am do this very quickly. I am roasting Betsy DeVos for her plan to cut $9 billion from the 20 educational programs, including the Special Olympics, for students with disabilities, after-school programs for low-income students, and programs for gifted students, and trying to redirect those funds to fund school choice programming, which has not proven to be effective.
Sean.
Well, there are so many easy targets this week. I thought I'd go with one many people may have missed. Last Saturday, thousands of our fellow citizens, many of them with guns in hand, gathered in a couple of dozen cities across the country in order to protect us from the specter of Sharia law. If we'd only had such brave citizens out there fighting to protect us from little green men, killer bees, and communists, we might all sleep better at night. But in all seriousness, Act for America, the group that sponsored this event, is a hate group. They're the modern manifestation of the dark fascist underbelly that has haunted this country since its founding. But their message will not go unanswered. We are watching you. We will resist you. Your xenophobic bigotry and hatred has no place here. You will not win.
Steve.
My roast is for the worst FBI director in American history, appropriately dubbed J. Edgar Comey by Michael Goodwin, for compiling a secret dossier to blackmail the president. The only bombshell from the Comey testimony was the stink bomb that exploded in Comey's face. After all the fake news and outright lies by Comey and his cohorts, here's what we learned. There was no obstruction of justice or any other crime by the president, and Comey himself committed at least 3 crimes. 2 things are now clear. The president is not going to be impeached, and Comey is a treacherous worm who will be relegated to the dustbin of history.
Ron.
Well, I'm going to roast the star columnist Steve Kraske. Simple headline that Sam Brownback lied. Excuse me. And it's that kind of rhetoric that poisons the public mind, that creates animosity going both ways, and it's a disservice to the country. And and it is the media that's driving the bus.
Okay. And finally, here is a toast to Defense Secretary James Mad Dog Mattis. Interviewed on television recently, Mattis was asked, "Mad Dog, what keeps you awake at night?"
Nothing. I keep other people awake at night.
Let's hope General Mad Dog Mattis continues to get many more nights of peaceful sleep and rest. And that's Ruckus for this time. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, I'm Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.
Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Hush Blackwell, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.